Imagine earning 1,500 euro per day, getting up at 9 a.m. and working however and whenever you want. The perfect world for a digital nomad.
Welcome to YD. Why do Germans do things the way they do?
Working from the Baltic Sea beach, the Black Forest, or the Bavarian Alps, perhaps with a view on Lake Chiemsee. Working where others go on holiday and still earning good money. Is that possible? When I was a software consultant a few years ago, clients had to pay at least 100 euro per hour and sometimes 1,500 per day for my services. Okay, it's been a while, but you needed very specific knowledge to do that. So yes, those prices are possible for well-trained consultants. Those who advised companies in very specific areas can even charge more. However, I was employed and not self-employed. And here we have the first problem. Digital nomads need either many customers or an employer. If you only have one client from whom all your assignments come, who may even transfer the same amount every month because you work 8 hours a day for the company, doing what and when the company wants, then you are not self-employed, but pseudo-self-employed and trying to defraud the state and social security. Let's break down our dream of becoming a digital nomad into its individual components. Firstly, I want to work digitally. This is possible in many areas, whether as a developer or analyst in marketing or editing, where I only need a computer to do my work. I am digitally mobile, and since Corona, mobile working has become commonplace. There's definitely a difference between working from home and mobile working. A home office, what means an office in your own house or flat, legally referred to as a häusliches Arbeitszimmer, office in the own home, is often set up by the company from the computer and the desk to adequate lighting. In some cases, companies even rent the room from the employee. In tax law, the häusliches Arbeitszimmer can be deducted from the tax burden, unless, of course, the company has already paid rent for it. For these reasons, some companies refer to mobile working. This means that there is no definition of where you have to work from, and in most cases, only a laptop is provided. So, in some industries in Germany, it is quite easy to work on the move as an employee. Secondly, this also means that the company has a branch in Germany. If my company in South Africa allows me to work from Germany, then this seems quite simple at first glance, but it basically requires that the company also has a branch in Germany where you are employed. Anyone who works in Germany has to pay taxes and contribute to the German social security system. And since these contributions are made via payroll, a local branch must carry out this payroll accounting and transfer the funds accordingly. Some employees who work across borders, for example, because they are fitters from France or Poland, building a bridge in Germany or advising a local company, need a posting certificate or a one certificate from their country on their employer stating that they are employed and insured in France or Poland, and so only working in Germany on a temporary basis. However, this applies within the EU and the European Economic Area as well as Switzerland. There are also bilateral social security agreements with a few other countries, but South Africa does not have one, and even if such an agreement exists, its contents may vary. On the other hand, there are a few companies that offer to act as employers. So if I need employees in a country but am reluctant to set up a branch there, I can hire these companies to recruit employees and then have them work for me. This costs a certain fee in addition to the salary, but my employee is then correctly employed in the country and taxes and social security contributions are paid correctly. Thirdly, But can I work from anywhere? Yes and no. There are a few places where I'm not allowed to work, and conversely, some where it is deliberately encouraged. If I sit in a small cafe and cover the entire table with my documents while using the free Wi Fi, but only drink a coffee every 2 hours, the owner can exercise his domiciliary rights and ask me to leave the premises. On the other hand, in an internet cafe or a co working space, I deliberately pay for the use of the facilities. It is also common for business travelers to work from business hotels. Here, the question is more whether my company allows me to work from anywhere or whether the connection needs to be particularly secure, perhaps with LAN, or only via certain connections, or only in locked rooms because no one else is allowed to see the business data or personal data. But what if I am self employed, perhaps as a web designer, and choose clients for whom I then create websites, or as an SEO consultant who writes to small channels to optimize them for search engines? In Germany, there are three large groups of self employed people: Gewerbetreibende, kind of tradespeople, Freiberufler, self employed people with a special job, and farmers. Farmers are obvious, but in agriculture, it is difficult to be flexible in terms of location, so let's leave them out. Freiberufler are people in Katalogberufen, catalog professions, who pursue an independent, artistic, scientific, literary, teaching, or educational profession. These include psychologists, doctors, lawyers, engineers, architects, tax consultants, midwives, journalists, interpreters, artists, teachers, and educators. Of course, this only applies if they are self employed. A teacher employed at a school or a doctor employed at a hospital are naturally not included. These people do not have to register a Gewerbe, business, or pay business tax, Gewerbesteuer, for their self employed activities. In some professions, it can be difficult to determine when a web designer is an artist or when a programmer is also an engineer, specifically for software. If you want to be on the safe side, register a business, and the brave can let it come to a legal dispute with the tax authorities. Many Freiberufler also have professional codes of conduct, such as the bar association or medical association. In some trades, especially those related to health or safety, there is a master craftsman certificate requirement. Anyone who wants to open a business in these fields needs a master craftsman certificate. For example, bricklayers and concrete workers, roofers and electrical engineers, bicycle mechanics and motor vehicle technicians, but also opticians, hairdressers, or hearing aid acousticians, and a few more. If, for example, I want to become self employed as a web designer or programmer, I register with the relevant Gewerbeaufsichtsamt, Trade Office, or Ordnungsamt, Public Order Office, depending on the federal, state, and municipality. Depending on the trade, there may be a few additional documents that are required. Craftsmen may need to provide a master craftsman certificate, at least a craftsman's card, and often membership of the Chamber of Crafts. Of course, you must be able to prove your identity and you should know what legal form you want to have. It may be a good idea to consult a tax advisor beforehand who can advise you on this. If you set up a one-person company, you may be a Gesellschaft bürgerlichen Rechts, GbR, civil law partnership, and then be liable with your entire private assets if something goes wrong with your self-employment. As soon as you have the Gewerbeanmeldung, business registration, however, you can start trading. This means that you can work independently and externally, seeking out customers and invoicing them for your services. You write invoices which are then paid by your customers. This also involves keeping appropriate accounts. A tax advisor can help with this too. In principle, this activity is designed to be long term. If you no longer wish to carry it out, you must deregister your business. Since the business is registered in a municipality, you also pay trade tax there, which varies from municipality to municipality. If you want to register your business in another municipality, you must re-register accordingly. In Germany, there's a strong focus on pseudo-self-employment. This is not the case in all EU countries. The courts in Germany very often rule in favor of the employee and social security. For example, a freelancer riding instructor who gave riding lessons on the horses of a riding club was actually employed, and the club now has to pay the social security contributions retroactively. Construction workers who simply performed tasks on a construction site and received a fixed hourly wage without issuing invoices were also actually employed. Stewards and security personnel in stadiums and at events are only self employed if they have registered a business themselves, otherwise, they are employed. Freie Mitarbeiter, freelancers, are in fact often employed because they have to work fixed hours that are imposed on them. You should check very carefully whether you are really self employed, especially if you are not from an EU country and are dependent on a visa. If you have problems in court, it could be difficult to extend your visa or keep it. There is no problem with being employed in Germany, you are well protected by law. There is a certain problem with being self employed because accounting and tax matters are not easy. If you're not so keen on bureaucracy, you might be better off as an employee. And if you come across a company that presents you with a pre-drafted contract stating that you are self-employed instead of an employment contract, steer clear. This company is probably trying to defraud the state, and if they are defrauding the entire state, they will probably defraud you too. There is no visa for typical digital nomads in Germany. Whether employed or self-employed, you have to register and settle here. Remarks, additions, and comments in the comments. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next video.